NATO defense officials gathered in Brussels at a time when questions are growing about the future of American military presence in Europe. The discussion came after U.S. President Donald Trump approved plans to redeploy around 5,000 American troops from Germany. While the move immediately triggered debate across Europe about alliance readiness and regional security, NATO's top military commander insisted the alliance remains fully prepared and operational. The meeting brought together military chiefs from across the alliance, with senior commanders focusing on Europe's long-term defense structure, maritime security concerns, and the growing pressure around key international shipping routes. NATO officials also discussed how European allies are increasingly expected to carry a larger share of the alliance's military responsibilities in the coming years. At the center of the discussion was General Alexis G. Grinkowicz, NATO's Supreme Allied Commander Europe. Speaking alongside other senior officials in Brussels, he attempted to reassure allies that the redeployment of American forces would not weaken NATO's defense posture or undermine existing military planning across Europe. General Grinkowicz explained that the troop movement was part of a broader strategic adjustment rather than a reduction in NATO commitment. According to him, the alliance had already examined the implications of the decision and concluded that operational readiness would remain intact. As you'd expect, we also discussed the recent decision by the United States to redeploy an armored brigade from Europe. I'd like to emphasize this decision does not impact the executability of our regional plans. The statement was intended to calm growing concerns among European governments that a reduced American footprint could create uncertainty at a time when security tensions remain elevated across several regions. For decades, American military forces stationed in Germany have represented one of the core pillars of NATO's deterrence structure in Europe. U.S. troops have played a major role in logistics, rapid deployment capability, intelligence coordination, training exercises, and alliance-wide military cooperation. Because of this long-standing role, even a limited redeployment attracts significant political and strategic attention. However, NATO officials now argue that Europe itself is becoming more capable of carrying greater responsibility. The alliance believes that increased military spending and modernization efforts by European members are gradually creating a stronger European defense pillar inside NATO. General Grinkowicz described this process as a long-term transition rather than a sudden shift. He said the United States would continue supporting NATO, but could increasingly redirect some capabilities toward other global priorities as European allies expand their own defense capacity. Again, this is as allies build up their capability, the United States is able to pull capability back and use it for other global priorities. The comments reflected a broader strategic trend that has been discussed inside NATO for several years. Washington has repeatedly encouraged European allies to increase defense spending and strengthen their own military industries. Several NATO countries have already announced major defense investment programs, including expanded procurement plans, naval modernization, air defense projects, and advanced surveillance systems. According to NATO officials, this process accelerated significantly after recent international crises highlighted the importance of military readiness, supply chain security, and rapid deployment capability. European governments now appear more willing than before to invest heavily in defense infrastructure and military preparedness. General Grinkowicz pointed to this changing balance inside the alliance as a key reason why the United States could gradually reduce some presence in Europe without affecting overall deterrence. What we're basically saying is, as the European pillar of the alliance gets stronger, this allows the U.S. to reduce its presence in Europe and limit itself to providing only those critical capabilities that allies cannot yet provide. He stressed that the process would take years and would depend on whether European governments successfully meet their defense, spending commitments, and military capability targets agreed under NATO planning frameworks. While some European officials continue to privately worry about the long-term direction of American strategy, NATO commanders publicly emphasized unity throughout the Brussels meeting. Senior officials repeatedly stated that alliance coordination remains strong and that military cooperation between North American and European allies continues without interruption. The meeting also highlighted another growing issue attracting international attention, the situation around the Strait of Hormuz. The waterway remains one of the world's most strategically important maritime routes, carrying a large share of global energy shipments through the Gulf region. Recent regional tensions and maritime security concerns have increased pressure on Western allies to coordinate their presence in international waters. Several NATO member states are already increasing naval deployments near the region as governments seek to protect shipping activity and maintain freedom of navigation. General Grinkowicz confirmed that multiple NATO countries are actively moving naval assets toward the area. Each nation is considering their response, with many, including Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom, sailing ships to the region now. We all agree it's in our interest to ensure freedom of navigation in international waters, and allies are moving out. The comments underline how European governments are becoming more involved in maritime security operations outside Europe itself. Naval deployments by alliance members have become increasingly common in regions connected to global trade and energy transportation. Officials believe that disruptions around major waterways could create broader economic consequences internationally. Because of this, NATO countries are closely monitoring developments and coordinating with partners on possible future responses. Still, General Grinkowicz clarified that NATO itself has not yet begun any formal alliance planning related to a potential mission in the Strait of Hormuz. According to him, NATO military planning can only begin after political approval is formally issued through the alliance's decision-making system. The political direction comes first, and then the formal planning happens after that. Am I thinking about it? Absolutely. But there's no planning yet until the political decision is taken. His remarks highlighted the balance inside NATO between military readiness and political consensus. Even when commanders prepare for possible future developments, formal operational planning requires agreement among alliance governments through the North Atlantic Council. The Brussels meeting itself reflected how NATO is increasingly balancing multiple strategic challenges at once. On one side, the alliance continues adapting its long-term force structure in Europe. On the other, it is also responding to maritime security concerns and wider international instability affecting trade routes and regional partnerships. Senior commanders emphasized throughout the discussions that deterrence remains central to NATO's strategy. Officials argued that maintaining visible readiness, rapid coordination, and flexible force deployment remains essential even as troop distributions evolve over time. General Grinkowicz also suggested that future redeployments should not come as a surprise. He indicated that additional adjustments could occur gradually over several years as European military capability expands. So we should expect there to be a redeployment of U.S. forces over time as allies build their capacity. That message is likely to continue fueling political debate across Europe. Some governments strongly support greater European strategic autonomy and defense independence. Others remain cautious and prefer maintaining a large and visible American military presence on the continent. At the same time, NATO leaders are attempting to present the transition as coordinated rather than divisive. Alliance officials insist the redeployment discussions are part of a planned evolution of NATO's structure, not a weakening of transatlantic cooperation. Military analysts say the next several years could become one of the most important adjustment periods in NATO's modern history. European defense industries are expanding production, military budgets are rising, and governments are revisiting long-term security planning at a pace not seen in decades. The alliance also faces the challenge of maintaining unity while member states pursue different national priorities and regional concerns. NATO commanders therefore continue stressing interoperability, coordination, and shared planning as central pillars of alliance stability. During the Brussels gathering, officials repeatedly emphasized that NATO's command structure remains operationally prepared despite changing troop distributions. Commanders argued that readiness depends not only on troop numbers, but also on mobility, logistics integration, intelligence sharing, air defense coordination, and multinational cooperation. The meeting also served as a reminder that NATO increasingly views security through a global lens rather than a strictly European one. Maritime routes, energy supply security, technological competition, and international crisis management are now deeply connected to alliance planning discussions. For European allies, the coming years may involve greater pressure to invest consistently in defense modernization. NATO officials believe that stronger European military capability would create a more balanced alliance while allowing the United States to focus additional attention on other international priorities. Still, NATO leaders insist that the alliance itself remains united despite ongoing strategic adjustments. As discussions ended in Brussels, officials projected confidence that NATO's overall defense posture remains stable even as military deployments evolve. The message from alliance commanders was clear: troop redeployments may continue, responsibilities inside NATO may gradually shift, but the alliance intends to maintain coordinated deterrence and operational readiness across multiple regions. At the same time, uncertainties surrounding global maritime security, regional tensions, and future geopolitical competition means NATO's role will likely remain under intense international attention for years ahead.